Well, continue to partner with the city as it relates to an elevated state police presence, work with the mayor in order to make sure that we can partner together, also to have the resources necessary to have a more robust local police presence and have better trained, better equipped, and more highly qualified police officers, in addition to the state police presence that we have here in in New Orleans that should continue until such time as the city is able to take control of that situation. The only decisions we had to make as a state was whether we were going to create our own exchange. That decision was no, and it's passed us. The only decision we have left is the Medicaid expansion. I would expand Medicaid. In fact, I've introduced legislation for 3 straight years trying to force the expansion. Those are our federal tax dollars. We ought to bring them home to make sure that our working poor get cared for in our hospitals, clinics, and by our doctors with our own money. It's just the right thing to do. It should not be a partisan issue. Of 30 states that have expanded the Medicaid program, 14 have Republican governors, and it's just the right thing to do. It saves us money. It helps us with our budget long term, and I think morally it's just the right thing to do. Wow, well, you always have to look for ways to deliver state services more efficiently with greater savings. You've got to look for more budget flexibility in terms of how to allocate revenue shortfalls so that they're not always concentrated on higher education and health care. We also have to look, and this is where I think the most of the savings will come from, in reducing tax expenditures that are costing too much and not producing enough return on investment. We can stop some of that spending through the tax code, which will allow us to reallocate the savings to higher priority items like health care and higher education. I do believe that all of that taken together will answer the vast majority of the problems that we have. Well, first of all, you've got to have a better education system. We've got to start investing in higher education again. Right now we lead the nation in terms of state general fund reductions to higher education, including community technical college systems. So if we better align the workforce needs of our state in terms of job opportunities with what we're actually teaching and training our kids to do, and then put our money where our mouth is and invest in that, we will allow more businesses, in fact, attract more businesses here. We can also do that by lowering the corporate tax rate from 8% to 5%, which we can do in a revenue neutral way if we will just give up the deduction for federal tax liability, which other states don't offer to begin with. First of all, we should never argue with science and pretend that there isn't a consensus when there actually is a scientific consensus. We're about to enter the implementation phase of coastal restoration because we have money that's coming. It's not enough for the $50 million minimum price tag of the Coastal Restoration Master Plan, but it's enough to start implementing. We have to spend every single dollar of that on coastal restoration. We have to have budget honesty and discipline, which we haven't had under Bobby Jindal. And we got to make sure that we implement only the plans in the Coastal Restoration Master Plan, starting first with the highest priority plans, because we're in a race against time. First of all, we have cut too deeply. $700 million a year. We've cut in state support for higher education more than any other state in the nation on a per capita basis. And we've run up the cost of tuition too much, 10% a year. Kids this year are paying 90% more in tuition and fees than they did in 2008. That is a disaster for our state. We have to do better. Yes, we're going to invest more state general fund dollars in higher education, and we're going to get back to a 50-50 funding ratio between state general fund support on the one hand and tuition and fees on the other. That's going to make education more affordable so that our kids can continue to enroll and have the possibility of higher education right here in Louisiana. The state would need to get a C for the public education system, and that's in recognition of the fact that we have some districts where you have persistent failure, and you've got some districts that do very, very well. Most are in the middle. We have to make sure that where you have persistent failure, you have more involvement from the state, not just in terms of a Bessie board and the Department of Education, Superintendent of Education that are micromanaging affairs, but actually resources to help to improve. But we've got to make sure that in those districts that do perform well, that they get to have more local control over their own school boards and their school systems, I should say.